So we're on to our second key point that we want to focus on, which is the hair and the curl structure. So we already know what Afro and multi-textured hair is at this point. Now we need to know what are some of those changes that can be made to the curl structure or the hair itself. Is it important for you to know these changes, and how does it affect you as a stylist if you weren't aware of this, or if you are aware of the changes that can be made? So with your Afro and multi-textured hair, some of the changes that can be made can either be temporary or permanent. So the first thing you always want to make sure is you need to know whether the person's got natural hair or has it been changed in some way. If the hair is natural, it just means that it's its naturally tightly coiled form, or it's naturally curly for the multi-textured hair. There possibly might not be color on there. So if someone's got color on their hair, for example, it's like a temporary color or a semi-permanent color, there isn't a massive change to the structure of the hair. So it's not going to affect any styling that you do. But if we start choosing more like the bleach and our high lift tints, because the chemical compound of that is a little bit more stronger compared to your temporary or semi-permanent colors, structurally it's going to affect how the hair naturally sits. So if you look at your type 4 hair texture, which would be permanently colored with a bleach, it's naturally going to stretch out the coil of the hair. So where the hair was tightly coiled, it becomes a little bit more looser. It depends on how much you do. So we all know as stylists that the more someone bleaches their hair, it's likely going to start to weaken the structure of the hair to some extent. So you could essentially end up with areas where the hair is naturally a little bit more straighter or much more of a looser wave because of the process of bleaching and coloring the hair. There are other changes that we do which are more permanent, as I listed here on the board. We have hair that is relaxed, texturized, or curly permed. So I'm just going to briefly summarize and explain what this is. So if someone has got relaxed hair, what we've done is, if the hair was a tightly coiled hair texture, I'm specifically talking about Afro hair here. Say for example, this is their natural curl structure that they have, and they decided that they wanted to change that permanently. What the relaxer does is essentially going to break down the bonds that hold the structure of the hair together to then force the hair to become straight. So when we relax the hair, it doesn't become bone straight. For example, like you can see with the straight line here, there's still some element of texture to the hair. One thing we don't want to do is to break down that hair too much. So usually we relax the hair up to like 80% straight, and then we need to leave that room to still have the bonds holding the hair together. If we make it too straight, at this point the hair is becoming weak. This is when you have people experiencing breakage and damage to the hair because the hair has been over processed. And also for the fact that we're likely going to be styling that hair with heat, that doesn't help the situation as well. So this is what we're changing the hair to, from this texture here to more of this texture here when we're talking about relaxed hair. So it is a chemical and it is permanent. Once it's done, you cannot actually undo the process. If someone decides that they don't want relaxed hair, they will literally have to go a transitioning process where they can either cut off all the relaxer completely, or they can gradually cut off the relaxer until the hair is completely back to natural. The next thing that we have is called texturizing. So some of you might have heard this word when we talk about texturizing in hairdressing. It's used in so many different formats. Texturizing for Afro hair that we're talking about, it's a chemical service. So I'll just give you a quick example. When we're talking about texturizing in hair, when we're cutting hair, that's a form of creating a layered effect in the hair, reducing the volume of the hair at the same time, and just creating more like a very free-flowing kind of shaggy texture to the hair as well. That's a form of using that word in hairdressing. Another way we talk about texturizing is if you're creating like a style where you're styling someone with more of your Caucasian and Asian hair textures, the hairstyle you're creating requires more structure to it, and you want it to create more shape. You're naturally going to start to figure out ways, how can you add texture to the hair so it's not too straight or too silky. You can do this by using the crimper to create more like the textured effect in the hair. We can use sprays that add texture to the hair. We can put powder in the hair to just change the feel and the softness of the hair essentially. But when we talk about texturizing for Afro and multi-textured hair, we're kind of doing the opposite of what the relaxer does at this point. So again, the person has got tightly coiled hair texture. say for example, someone transitioned from a relaxer, they went to natural hair, they had that for about a year, but they get to a point where they're finding it quite challenging to manage the hair. They want the hair to be easily managed, but they don't want to go back to that straight look with the relaxed hair. So they want an in-between where they still chemically process the hair, but essentially the hair still looks natural. So this is when we then offer them the option of doing a texturizer. So with the texturizer, what we're doing is the hair is still tightly coiled, but I'm just going to take that product and apply it on the hair and just lightly loosen the coils in the hair. So essentially there isn't a massive change, but the hair feels a little bit more softer. It reduces the volume of the hair. If I was to blow dry the texturized hair, it's going to blow dry a little bit more quicker. If I was going to straighten the hair, it will hold the straightness a little bit more compared to the hair that is natural. It's still a chemical. It's the cream similar to a relaxer cream that we're using. But when I do a relaxer on someone's hair, the service should take me about 12 to 15 minutes. From the time I put the product on to the time that I take it off. When I do a texturizer, I might leave it on for anything between 5 to 8 minutes. So the less time it's left on, the more of the texture is going to stay in the hair. The longer you leave it on, the more it's going to become straight. So essentially that's what it is when we talk about texturizing in regarding to styling Afro multi-textured hair. The next thing we have is a curly perm. So curly perm has been around for the longest time, and this is a permanent change that we do to the hair. If someone had tightly coiled hair, but they wanted to see more defined curls in their hair, the only option to create that on someone with Afro hair would be to do a curly perm, okay? If someone decided they didn't want a curly perm and they didn't want that curly hair anymore, the next option would be to either transition and grow out the hair completely and possibly transition to a natural hair. You're not able to apply a relaxer on top of a curly perm. You would have to literally let the hair grow out. But essentially all these are changes that can be done to Afro hair texture to manipulate the curl in some way, okay? This applies to both someone with Afro hair or multi-textured hair. It applies to men's hair, it applies to women's hair as well. So as a stylist, it's very important to know if someone has had their hair styled in any of these chemical processes that I just mentioned here. The products that we use are going to change if we're styling natural hair. The techniques that we use are going to change. The process and the time that it takes is likely going to be different. If someone's got natural hair and I'm blow drying the hair, it might take me maybe 20 to 25 minutes. If someone has got relaxed hair and I'm blow drying the hair, it might take me 10 to 15 minutes. So there is a bit of a difference to your styling options, your products that you use. So one thing I would mention is that before you start styling someone's hair, as a hairdresser in the salon, the first thing that we do when someone sits in front of my chair, or in my chair, should I say, the first thing I'll be asking them is, what have you done to your hair? Is there been any changes that have been made to your hair? Is this hair that you have that I'm seeing now, is your hair natural? Is it chemically processed in some way? The answer could be, my hair is natural, but I had it texturized maybe a year ago. So it's likely they still have some texturizer on their hair if they haven't cut their hair. So I need to work out, okay, there's about half of the hair is natural, the other half is texturized. So what are my styling options? Am I able to do things like a twist? Is it going to sit right when I do the taking out? Or for example, someone could have relaxed hair, but they've been transitioning for the last 2 years. So they have about maybe 4 inches of regrowth, that would be their natural hair, and then an extra 3 inches of relaxed hair. But if we're thinking about styling that hair, you have to take into account that the two textures, they don't work very well together. There's going to be elements of the hair tangling up together, especially when you're trying to shampoo hair, when we're talking about natural hair and relaxed hair. So I'll just draw this so you get an idea of what I mean. If someone has got natural hair that is grown out because they're transitioning, what you will see on the head is, this is the area where you got your natural hair, this is the area where you got your relaxed hair. This hair is weaker than this hair. Every time water goes on this hair is going to tangle up with that hair. So there gets to a point where you need to completely cut off all the relaxed hair and just style the natural hair. You're limited to the natural styling that you can do. If someone has got this type of texture right now, where they're going through a transitioning process and they decided that they want their hair styled natural, there's only so much that you can do as a stylist, because this hair that is straight, you can't really put it in a twist. It doesn't hold very well. You can't do curl defining on that hair because it's straight. So you have to either constantly blow dry and straighten the hair, because that's the only thing that will blend the two textures together while you're still able to create a really nice look for your client. So it's very important to understand the differences that can be done to the hair and what the structure of the hair essentially is. I'm going to be talking a little bit more about the structure of the hair in terms of what we see when we're looking at tightly coiled hair, which is essentially what this is, and then what we see when we're talking about multi-textured hair, which is a varying degrees of different textures in the hair. So the next thing we're going to focus on now is understanding the curl guide chart, which will have a little bit more of a detailed description as to the different changes in the structure and the curl pattern of the hair, and also understanding about the lettering and the numbering system of that as well.